An Aussie school shooting.
Couldn't happen here. That's what we all thought until Wednesday. A 15-year-old, a couple of high-powered rifles, shots fired, and the potential for the kind of horrific, community-destroying gun violence that's all too common in America, but almost unknown to us.
A terrifying prospect.
Yeah. And just like us, Mark McGowan was shook.
It was something that could have ended up so much worse.
So was Police Commissioner Cole Blanche.
As Police Commissioner, I've never seen an incident like it here in WA.
But imagine actually being the kids at Atlantis Baptist College. Children as young as 12 were dialing 000 as they were being told to huddle under their desks or barricade themselves inside cupboards. The Premier and Police Commissioner praised the teachers and students.
When something completely unexpected took place, they reacted appropriately.
They rang 000. They provided excellent, credible information that allowed our officers to respond appropriately.
This isn't like the US, where active shooter training is almost part of the curriculum.
It's more common than you think in WA.
Yeah, people might not realise, but for a number of years now, a lot of schools here have been teaching kids what to do if a gunman arrives one day. Some schools sound an alarm, others broadcast a special code over the PA. It's anxiety-inducing for the kids and would have seemed like overkill until this week. It's worth noting the Atlantis shooting comes exactly 1 year since the Robb Elementary School massacre in Uvalde, Texas, where a lone gunman killed 19 kids and 2 teachers.
Not much has changed over there.
Nothing, really. 12 months on from that unimaginable tragedy, and America is still no closer to stopping the next mass shooting. It's disgusting how politicians in that country put their own grubby ambitions before the lives of innocent children who can't go to school without fear of being executed by a monster holding an AR-15. Thankfully, it's hard to see us ever having an event that bad since Australia introduced tight gun restrictions in the wake of the Port Arthur massacre in 1996. John Howard's gun reforms and a buyback scheme were a game changer, and it's reduced the number of Aussie households with firearms by 75%. But Atlantis is a reminder that we can't just assume gun violence will never happen here.
There are still a lot of guns out there.
Actually, more in Australia now than there were in 1996. And the watering down of gun laws means it's actually easier for people to legally stockpile firearms, which is why the number of guns per owner has nearly doubled since Port Arthur. As it happens, WA is the only jurisdiction in Australia that hasn't completely overhauled its gun legislation in that time. But major reform launched by the McGowan government is currently underway. It includes mandatory mental health checks and a complete ban on 56 types of high-powered rifles and 19 calibers of ammunition. Police Minister Paul Papalia has hinted there could be changes coming to a ridiculous online application process that has seen the number of registered guns in WA go up 60% since its introduction 13 years ago.
What we're going to do with the Act is reduce the number of firearms in this state and make it far more rigorous, the management of firearms in this state far more rigorous.
It's a start.
Yeah, but if you look at the root cause of gun violence in America, you find inequality, disenfranchisement, poor access to mental health care, economic hardship, drugs, radicalisation on the internet. These are things that our society is also struggling to deal with. So yeah, gun reform is an important step, but don't forget the cops say the guns allegedly used at Atlantis were licensed and kept in a locked cabinet, fully legal. So introduce laws to remove guns from households. After all, no one needs to have 4 guns. But let's also work harder on identifying and diverting troubled teens, because laws don't always work.
Education is key.
It really is. And it can also take you to some pretty cool places, like the Murchison, where radio telescopes have pretty much thrown out everything we know about a type of cosmic explosion that has puzzled astrophysicists for years. No, not that one. Fast radio bursts only last a few milliseconds, but they can produce as much energy as our sun does in 10,000 years.
Stick a fork in me, Jerry.
FRBs were only discovered for the first time in 2007, but science has struggled to explain how they happen. It was thought that the cataclysmic collision of galaxies might be needed to birth the massive stars capable of producing such immense blasts of radio energy. But a new study undertaken at the Australian Square Kilometre Array Pathfinder Radio Telescope, which is about 5 hours northeast of Gero, has blown that theory out of the water. Scientists from Curtin University used the CSIRO telescope to find some FRBs, and they discovered they were actually coming from a quiet corner of the universe, not some turbulent galactic collision. That'll prompt a huge rethink in how this mysterious phenomenon occurs, and it gets us closer to a better understanding of the true nature of the universe. And it's from research happening right here in WA, and that's pretty bloody awesome.
So was Tina Turner.
They broke the mould when they made Tina Turner, and the world is mourning her death at aged 83. She was iconic, and the face of rugby league in Australia, which seems super random now. But Tina was also a domestic abuse survivor. She endured years of violence at the hands of her husband and musical collaborator Ike, and it wasn't until she was nearly 40 that she was able to leave. But the woman who was born in Nutbush, Tennessee, never really managed to escape the abuse. For years after she left Ike, the music industry didn't want to touch her. She had to fight to prove herself as an artist without him. But even when she became a superstar in her own right, the media often framed her career around Ike or treated her trauma as little more than colourful content. One interview actually had Ike on at the same time and let him deny the abuse to her face.
Everyone that worked for Ike and Tina in those days know what happened. I can see why someone would want to deny it. It shows, not a very good character, but I have nothing to say.
Can you imagine doing that to a victim of domestic abuse these days? So it's great that everyone is listening to her music today, but let's not forget the woman behind it lived through the sort of trauma that far too many women in our society are living with right now. Tina Turner, there's no one like you, but in your story, so many see themselves and find hope in that. You're simply the best. I'm Ben O'Shea.
For more Up Late, click the subscribe button below.